Since my first recording, for some reason, I had it muted. So, you know what? Let's make our way through this episode. It's chapter 23 of The Mandalorian called The Spies. Now, as always, we're going to be talking spoilers. If you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, you haven't seen this episode, look, we're going to be talking about all the spoilers. So, that's your warning. The episode starts off in a very Blade Runner-esque kind of look to it because we're on Coruscant. It's foggy. There's some rain. It's actually really cool. I loved the soundscape and everything around Coruscant. It's very cool. But Elia Kane, we know her, right? She's going down this alleyway to meet a probe droid, and the probe droid basically projects Moff Gideon to her, and she's saying, "Yeah, the Mandalorians are doing this and that, blah blah blah," and he's like, well, I'll take care of them. You finish your mission." And then he goes down these force field type things, right? Just like in the Phantom Menace, and he's going through these force fields, and you're like, okay, what's behind this door? It's a secret council, and who do we see there? We see a bunch of Imperial captains, commanders, all of these people, basically the remnants of the Empire, and two of them are Captain Palaeon and Commander Hux. If you're a fan of the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire books, of course, Captain Palaeon was Thrawn's second in command. So it was really cool to see him brought into, I guess, canon. And of course, with Thrawn coming in, I mean, Thrawn's coming, right? Very interesting timing because we just got the confirmation that Lars Mikkelsen is going to be playing Thrawn in the Ahsoka series. But I honestly think that we may actually see Thrawn next week. It would be kind of an interesting little thing that kind of keeps everybody going. Now, Commander Hux is, at least my understanding, he is the father of the Hux that we know in the sequel trilogy. And he was involved in the indoctrination of the First Order troopers, and their sort of conditioning. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out because I thought he was involved with that, but they're talking about him being with cloning. So very interesting stuff. And look, I got to be honest, I'm intrigued by that. But of course, Moff Gideon says we're going after the Mandalorians, right? So that's what's going down there. And we get over to the Mandalorians, and they arrive on Navarro. And Greef Karga is there to greet them. And Greef Karga says, "Hey, I've got a gift for you, Din." And basically takes him into his office. And there is IG-11. Only he's piloted by one of those little Babu Frick guys, right? And he jumps out, and there's a cute little scene with him and Grogu. And basically, what it is it's IG-11 is now IG-12, and Grogu can pilot him, with these little things, and he can say yes and no. And it's one of those things where I'm like, of course, this makes so much sense because now Grogu can be part of the action without just floating around and stuff. He can be, he can actually take part in the action, which is very cool and kind of ingenious, really. There's a really cool scene with Bo-Katan and Din, and of course, Bo has explained the fact that she, after the Night of a Thousand Tears, basically gave up the Darksaber to Moff Gideon because she thought that they were going to leave them in peace. Of course, that didn't happen. And very interesting stuff. And she's telling Din that she's like, I don't know if I can keep everybody together. All I've got is the Darksaber. And he goes, honestly, I don't care about the Darksaber. Doesn't matter. I'm here for honor, for character. You've got that. You have my allegiance. And it was just a really neat little character moment, and very cool to see Din's character progress to this point. I mean, he's always been on his own, kind of, and doing his own thing, and to see him give her his allegiance like that it's just really cool scene. Now everybody leaves for Mandalore, and it's really kind of a neat scene when they get there, because I guess the doors open up and all of the volunteers are able to see what's going on. And of course, the plan is that there's these volunteers that will go to the planet, make sure everything's safe. Everybody else is still in orbit around Mandalore. So they're going down there to make sure everything's cool. And when they get there, they meet these other Mandalorians that kind of show up out of nowhere. And they're riding this big sort of ship that looks like it would be at home in the water, but it's on the land and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of an interesting concept. And yeah, they get attacked out of nowhere by some big freaking monster that comes out of the ground. And, I'm sitting there going, turn, just, just turn away from, don't go toward, turn away. I don't know. Did I miss something? I don't know. It was a weird scene. Bunch of them get taken out and they go underground and they're almost immediately attacked by these stormtroopers that are wearing Beskar armor. They're flying, they've got jetpacks, the whole thing. And it's weird because the first thing I thought was Din turning to Grogu in the little pilot thing, and he says, "They fly now," and Grogu just punches yes. I just thought, you could turn that kind of cringy joke in The Rise of Skywalker and make it into something kind of funny. I don't know. Is it just me? Probably pretty bad. Anyway, they chase these stormtroopers into a cave that basically turns into the Imperial, and into an Imperial corridor. And they, of course, is a trap. And Din is separated from everyone else. And Moff Gideon comes down in this dark trooper armor, and he's basically like, "Hey, this is the plan. We're combining Mandalorians and the cloning and Jedi to basically make these super troopers, kind of, whatever." And they take Din off for briefing, and he's basically like, "Mandalorians, you were awesome, but you've served your purpose, and now we're taking you out." And yeah, Bo-Katan immediately starts to cut a hole in the wall with the darksaber behind them, and Paz Vizsla and everybody's just taking out these stormtroopers as best they can. And she's like, "Okay, Paz, come on." And Paz is like, "Nah, you get them to safety. There's too many. This is the way." And he punches the door and, of course, separates him from her. And he takes out all the stormtroopers, which is really cool. But then the Praetorian Guards from The Last Jedi show up and basically take Paz out. And apparently they were like, I read that they were sort of like predecessors to what we see in The Last Jedi. But anyway, he's presumably dead on the floor, and that's the end of the episode. So I guess the big question at the end of this is, who are the spies, right? I mean, there's more than one. And the first thing I thought was, it's got to be these Mandalorians who just showed up out of nowhere, conveniently. And you're telling me nobody knew that the Empire was there doing stuff on Mandalore? I mean, you're kidding me, right? So it makes me think that they are the spies, which could mean that since the armorer took the wounded and the hurt up to the fleet, there's a good chance that they're just inundated with spies, right? But then there's the other thing, is that the armorer herself could be a spy. And if that's true, then wow, what a long game she's been playing. You know what I'm saying? So interesting stuff anyway. And I look forward to next week to see how it all turns out. Now, I do have a couple of problems with the episode. I mean, let's just be honest. Nothing's perfect. And there's a lot of convenience in this episode. Number one, the monster. Again, where did this monster come from? It's a cool looking scene. I just don't understand why. Like, why in the storytelling that you're like, you know what? We should have just a big giant monster attack. I mean, okay, but it didn't really do anything except push them into the cave. In which case, you probably could have just had them pull over and go into the cave. I mean, I don't know. It was a strange choice. And then, of course, that Moff Gideon somehow knew that Bo-Katan had been given the darksaber by Din. I mean, has he been watching the show? I don't know. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of. And I have to say it. I know this is one of those things that some people disagree with me on, but for me, I feel the score is just lacking. I'm not a fan of it, and I continually am pulled out of the episode. That sounds weird. I didn't mean for it to sound like that, but yeah, I keep getting... I almost said I keep getting sucked out of the episode. It just keeps getting worse. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't want to be taken out of the moment, and the score keeps taking me out, and that's not good. And there seems to be a lack of depth in the themes, and it just, I don't know. I feel bad because I know that there's somebody that's been working really, really hard on the score, and maybe it's a lack of time. I don't know. I just got to say, I'm not a fan. And quite possibly the biggest problem is the lack of focus in this entire season. I mean, I thought this was a really fun episode. For the most part, I really enjoyed the story and the little drops of information here that we're getting. Very, very cool stuff. But we only have one episode left. And it's one of those things where I kind of feel like, in the old days where there were 22, 23, 24 episodes in a season, for different, network television, and a good, I don't know, 85, 90, 95% of the episodes were just filler episodes until you got to the final 2 or 3 episodes, and that's where all the focus was. And I kind of feel like this is the same sort of thing, which is frustrating, because I feel like we've just, in a lot of ways, we've been treading water. And now that I've seen this, and I'm kind of like, man, I kind of wish we got this earlier. You know what I mean? So those are my thoughts on The Spies. I'm curious, for those of you who have watched the episode, what do you think? I mean, do you agree with me? Who are the spies? Who are the spies? Are you looking forward to next week? I mean, are we going to see Thrawn? I don't know, but I'm curious what everybody's thinking. Let me know down below. We'll talk about it because that's fun. Let's talk about it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.